Of course, Vargas does not drink, does not smoke, does not make love. What do you do, Vargas?
Maybe he reviews James Bond movies on the internet? Hi, I'm Kevin from the SDP, and this is the 007 Diamond Jubilee. Our story starts at the Shrublands Clinic in England, where 007 has been assigned some forced R&R. At the clinic, a series of events lead him to discover the death of Francois Derval, a French NATO pilot who was scheduled to run a training flight with 2 atomic bombs. It turns out he was killed by a Spectre assassin, who takes Derval's place and crash lands the flight in the Atlantic Ocean, enabling a Spectre team to steal the bombs. The head of Spectre announces a £100 million bounty for the bombs, lest a random city in the US or UK be attacked with them. MI6 scrambles the 00 agents to headquarters to begin the search, and 007 goes to the Bahamas to question Derval's sister and our leading lady, Domino. Being in the custody of the villain, as well as receiving the shocking revelation that her brother was killed, makes her one of the most sympathetic Bond girls. On the villainous side of things, we also have Fiona Volpe, a Spectre assassin. She and Vargas, a chaste hitman, present another mildly awesome bunch of henchmen, but it's a shame they were underdeveloped. At least Fiona gets her moment to shine when she chews Bond out for making love to her with the intent to turn her to the side of good.
Of course, I forgot your ego, Mr. Bond. James Bond, who only has to make love to a woman and she starts to hear heavenly choir singing. She repents and immediately returns to the side of right and virtue. But not this one.
Truly brilliant. Especially coming off the sex-face turning Goldfinger. There's also this infamous scene where Volpe has Bond trapped in a nightclub, but he gets her henchman to shoot her by mistake. Now, this has caused a debate among Bond fans. Did he really get her killed, or was it just an accident? Looking over this scene myself, I'd say yes, it was intentional, given the way he was tracking the bad guys circling the perimeter. But even if he wasn't, I still have faith that he would put his libido aside and get the job done.
One of my friends sits this one out. She's just dead.
Besides, if Bond could spot an incoming goon by the reflection in a girl's eyes in Goldfinger, then he must be really sharp. Both of these girls are mistresses to the villain Emilio Largo, the No. 2 officer of Spectre, and engineer of Operation Thunderball. Not that we're far into this franchise, but Largo is the most dangerous feeling Bond villain we've seen yet. Maybe it's the eye patch, maybe it's the way he tries to torture Domino in cold blood, I don't know. Either way, it makes his demise all the more sweet. Thunderball provides the Bond canon with 2 of its most memorable gadgets, the jet belt used in the pre-credit sequence, and the pocket rebreather, used by Bond to survive in a closed shark tank. Shockingly, the jetpack really works, but the rebreather, not so much. I'm no scuba aficionado, but I can tell you that among other things, it needs some sort of air sac that can hold more than one lungful. Despite that one point of contention, Thunderball innovated in the area of underwater filming, capturing such gripping scenes as the final battle between Spectre and the US Coast Guard. These large-scale battles are a staple of the earlier Bond films, and I'm personally a big fan of them. Even though Bond helps the good side time and time again, his actions aren't given too much emphasis, so he feels less like a one-man army. The opening sequence was the first designed by series mainstay Maurice Binder and featured silhouettes of men and women swimming in multicolored water. It's a simple approach, but a visual treat, and foreshadows the film's emphasis on underwater combat. The theme song was sung by Tom Jones, and from the lyrics which paint the target man, Bond, maybe Largo, as a cold-hearted, one-track mind monster, to the high note at the end which allegedly caused Jones to pass out after recording it, the track hits you over the head with its bombastic awesomeness. But this was actually a last-minute replacement for another song, Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, performed by Shirley Bassey. Despite its late omission, this song is still prevalent in the film's score. One final thing. In the late 1950s, Ian Fleming collaborated with Irish director Kevin McClory to develop a James Bond feature film. The project didn't initially pan out, so Fleming went ahead and adapted the script into the novel Thunderball. Not having been credited, McClory was not amused. He sued Fleming for plagiarism, but they settled out of court. When Broccoli and Saltzman produced the film adaptation of Thunderball, McClory was credited as a co-writer and co-producer, but the damage was far from over. We'll see the future ramifications of the dispute, mostly involving the rights of the name and characters of Spectre, when we discuss future Bond movies, so keep this in mind. As I was first exploring the early Bond franchise years ago, I admit I wasn't that into Thunderball at first. My original hang-up was over the pacing, since there are long stretches in the beginning that don't involve Bond. Plus, as a result of the aforementioned rights issue, this story got a remake in the 1980s, which we'll get to eventually. But as a maturing critic, I've learned to look past all that and can see this for what it is, another solid effort. For all the trouble Fleming had to go through to get this to the big screen, and yet he died before it was finished, it was worth it, especially for the character-driven moments involving Largo and Domino, as well as the underwater action sequences. Thunderball scores 90%, an A-.
I think you got the point.